Alright boys, here it is, finally, the last tier list, and this one's going to be for the Ogryn. Luckily, or not so much, the Ogryn actually doesn't have too many weapons, so we're going to be able to do all of them on this video. And at the risk of sounding like a broken record, I want to start by saying absolutely every single one of these weapons is fireable, even in Damnation, even the ones that I rank in F tier. And of course, I invite everybody to give their thoughts and opinions on where everything's been listed, or if they would change anything, where they would put it, and why. Now let's get started with the first weapon, and that is the Twin Link Stubber, an all-round fantastic weapon. I have an absolute load of fun using this one, and we're going to be putting it into B. The reason it's getting a B is not really because of anything it does wrong itself. It does have a couple of shortcomings, all weapons do, but for the most part, it's because it kind of encourages Ogryns to play in a way that doesn't particularly suit the class. If you spend too much time in range, 90% of your talents and especially your iconics are basically contributing nothing to the team. So for example, the Ogryn aura is to increase melee attack damage. However, if you're nowhere near the melee characters, then no one is getting the benefit from that aura. A lot of your talents require you to hit things with a melee swing. So if you spend 90% of a match shooting with the Twin Link Stubber, which is something you can easily end up doing, your class is just not providing a ton of value to the team overall, and this can become quite detrimental in the higher difficulties, especially if your team isn't that good. As far as blessing recommendations go, then I highly recommend Charmed Reload. This allows you to fire basically non-stop forever and blaze away to get that damage ramping up. Perks, Unarmored and Flaked are what I would go with. And coming up now, we have the Latrine Shovel, a very good all-round weapon for the Ogryn. I actually enjoy using this one quite a lot, and I keep coming back to it. I'm going to be putting this one into A and quickly explaining why it's not in S tier. So first of all, it just doesn't quite have the stopping power to kill things quickly that you would want from an S tier weapon. It also is fairly clunky to use. It has a pretty slow bringing up of the block animation, which I don't understand if that's maybe some issue there, but most weapons, they kind of block instantly when you hold down right click. This one takes a second to get going. Not sure what that's about, but it's definitely one of the things keeping this out of S. Has good horde control, has a great heavy strike down, which is good for taking out other Ogryns. Overall, just a fantastic, well-rounded weapon, easily worthy of A. When it comes to blessings, Brutal Momentum never hurts. It allows you to get even more cleave, though the Ogryn is hardly lacking in that department. And I like to mix this with something like Confident Strike in order to give you a bit more toughness regen when you're just smashing into a horde. However, you can go with Thrust to help you with the anti-Ogryn capabilities as well. As for perks, it really depends on where you want to focus. Unarmored and Flak for horde clearing, or you could go Unyielding Carapace for taking out the bigger Ogryns, or any combination of those four, whatever suits what you feel like you're lacking in the most. Coming up now is the Bully Club. To me, the Bully Club and the Latrine Shovel, they feel very similar in what they do in terms of moveset and everything. Actually, it could always be the same weapon as far as I'm concerned. But I dislike this a little bit just due to the fact that it doesn't quite have the horde clearing capabilities of the shovel. However, it does lean into the taking out the armored enemies like the crushers and the bulwarks a little bit better. But for me, the shovel is just all round a better performer than the Bully Club. Not by much, but enough to drop it down a tier to make sure there's a clear distinction between the two. Now, when it comes to blessings on the Bully Club, I really like momentum on this one. It allows you to just build up a ton of toughness just from smacking into the horde, and then thrust allows you to really power up that heavy attack and just fold crushers in half. As for the perks, same as the Latrine Shovel, either Unarmored, Flak for clearing hordes, Carapace Unyielding for the Ogryns, or any combination of those four. Up now is the Rumbler. This is the single shot grenade launcher. I absolutely love this thing. Huge damage output, massive area of effect, and fantastic stagger capability. Also has to be the most satisfying weapon in the game to get a long range kill with, because when you bang a sniper with the grenade impact and not the explosion and kill them, that is a chef's kiss moment right there. As for ranking then, we're going to be putting this in S tier, and that is because it embodies everything an Ogryn needs from a ranged weapon perfectly. It has that really fast on-demand range DPS, and it also serves as an oh shit button when things are getting a little bit hairy at close range by knocking everything back off of you. It's surprisingly accurate thanks to the telegraphing of the grenade, and can do pretty good in prolonged fights, as if there is a veteran sharpshooter on the team, this thing practically has unlimited ammunition. It's pretty funny how much you can go without having to pick up an ammo box with this one. As for blessings, this is actually a pretty interesting weapon because it's one of the few, if not the only weapon that I recommend a blessing that doesn't provide a consistent bonus throughout a game, and that is adhesive charge. This is when your grenade sticks to bosses. The reason being is, first of all, there isn't really many good ones to pick from on the Rumbler, if we're being honest. But not only does the grenade stick, meaning you won't miss as often, it also seems to juice the damage up big time. You can absolutely chunk Beasts of Nurgles with this. It does an insane amount of damage. But yeah, I mean, there's not really any other better choices really. But for the times that this does get a chance to work, it just does so much to the bosses. It's insane. I really love pairing this with Glory Hunter for that toughness back on kill, super handy in prolonged fights. As for perks, I personally like to take Unyielding and Carapace damage on this, but you could consider taking Unarmored and Flak for horde clearing. Moving on now to the Cleaver family, we have the Mark III, the Mark IV, and the Mark VI, and I'm going to rank each one of these differently and talk about why they're not in the same rank. So we're going to start with the 4, and this is a C, the 6 I'm going to make an A, and the 3 is going to be an S. We'll start by talking about the Mark IV. The reason that is a C is because of its overuse of poking and strike down attack patterns. It's more focused on single target damage, which I really don't feel has a lot of value when it comes to Darktide when you're always fighting about 100 different things at once. And then we have the Mark VI, which does a much better job of introducing more slashing attacks into its attack pattern, which does make it much better at handling hordes. And then we have the Mark III, which just absolutely slices and dices hordes. All 3 of these daggers have really nice fast attack patterns with really good damage backing them up. All the heavy attacks provide some decent single target damage if you ever need that. But for me, just light attack spamming this thing into a horde does infinite. Can suppress a very large area, you can control a very big horde and deal an absolute ton of damage. And the Mark III is just the absolute king at doing this. As for blessings, I recommend Momentum. If you can't hit that, then Confident Strike is a close second, and pair that with Slaughter and you can't go wrong. As for perks, this is a horde clearing weapon, so Unarmored and Flak I think are king here. And as a side note, you definitely need to pair this weapon with a ranged one that does some damage to Carapace armors, so you're not just completely useless against them. Recommendations there would be either the Rumbler or the Grenade Gauntlet. Coming up now then, we have the Ripper guns. There are 3 variants. There's the Mark II, the Mark V, and the Mark VI. The difference being they all have slightly different firing modes or rates of fire. And we're going to be rating these as the Mark VI in F. And let me finish rating these and I'll explain why that one's in F. We'll be having the Mark II, which is the green one here, I believe, as a C. And then the Mark V as a B. So let's quickly break down why these are all different. First of all, the Mark VI, which is in F, is the burst fire version of this gun. And really, I just don't like the burst fire mode on this one very much. It does do quite a bit of damage, but the other 2 are full auto, so there really isn't much of a reason to pick this one over those 2, and that's why it's an F. Because it's comparative to the other 2 versions of this gun and not so much the gun itself. The Mark II is in C. This is a full auto version, but it's quite a slow rate of fire with a more heavier damage output than the Mark V. But the Mark V is by far the fastest firing version of this gun. It feels the best to use, still does plenty of damage, and is by far my favorite. All of these guns though are pretty good horde clearing tools. However, I said this about the Stub, but when it comes to horde clearing, you really want to be doing that in melee. To no surprise, all 3 of these lack the ability to do damage to crushers. However, they do have a blessing that can help with that called Can Opener, which I don't really recommend using because unfortunately it's just any special attack in this game just locks you up for far too much time, and being in melee with your gun can lead to a lot of avoidable damage just being piled onto you for no reason. It's fun to use, but again, it's not particularly great. And this all really boils down to a few things. It's the limited ammo capacity, the long deployment time, and also the long reload time, with, you know, the fact that it doesn't do that much damage. You know, sure, it can chew through hordes, but it really does have trouble with the bigger enemies on the higher difficulties. So then what do I recommend for blessings? I very much like Blaze Away for some huge damage output increases. And then I think something like Born in Blood to help at least give you some toughness back if you are taking hits is a great thing to do. And then as for perks, this is a horde clearer, so Unarmored and Flak I think are the way to go. Next is the Kickback, and this is the single shot shotgun. This weapon actually does like the most damage of anything in the game. It does like well over 1k damage per hit, so it can really delete something, but it's still not that good because though it has all of that damage, it doesn't kill things much faster than a lot of the other options on this gun anyways, because the Rumbler can one-shot most things, and I mean so can the grenade launcher, which is coming up next. The damage isn't enough, however, to like put a mutant down on higher difficulties, which kind of sucks because if it did, it would be a higher rating than what I'm going to rate it at, and that's going to be F, because again, it does a good job of killing stuff fast, but there's just so much more on this list that does the same thing and or has additional benefits into that. It's just no real good reason, I think, to take this over any other gun outside of just fun value. As far as blessings go, the only one I can really recommend is Terrifying Barrage, as this suppresses enemies around you on short range kill, means you can reload without taking any damage. Other than that, really not too sure what to suggest, but for perks, that's nice and easy. Unarmored and flak armor damage is what you're going to want to go for. So then we're moving on to the grenade launcher, a highly versatile weapon, has great range, it's pretty accurate as far as an Ogryn weapon goes, does respectable damage, and has a good amount of knockdown as well. Of course, there's always the melee mode as well for in a pinch, which does actually come in handy. All in all, fantastic weapon and definitely worth rating as an S. Really has very few shortcomings as far as an Ogryn weapon goes. Absolutely no reason not to take this. Very, very good weapon. And then so for blessings, I'd recommend Shattering Impact and Glory Hunter. Just a great combination of extra damage and some toughness regen. As for perks, I would like Elite Damage, Flak, and Unyielding. This is going to help you take down specials and Ogryns a little bit faster. Now we're going to talk about the Slab Shield, and this is a tough one for me because I feel like a lot of players misuse the Slab Shield. All in all, it's a pretty decent weapon. It does a lot of stagger, has great defenses, and is generally quite versatile. However, this weapon's biggest flaw is how it incentivizes people to play. More often than not, you'll see Ogryns just hunker down in the middle of a map, somewhere completely irrelevant, and just sit there and do nothing. And this happens so much. Half the time they're blocking line of sight as well, so you can't even shoot the things that they're being shot by. Enemies just walk past them. All in all, it's just a horribly misused weapon, and generally speaking, it doesn't do anything that much better than anything else. I feel like Darktide provides a lot more incentive for aggressive play, and the Slab Shield just doesn't quite fit the meta at all, so this is going to be going into C. If you are going to go with a shield though, I recommend you take at least Confident Strike with it. The other 3 blessings that you can get, I don't think it's a massive difference which one you end up with. As for perks, I think block efficiency and maybe unarmored damage would be good to go for, and you'll be all set. And then moving on to our final weapon, we have the Power Maul. And then when it comes to CC, this thing is king. You send things flying with this weapon. Actually, the light attack pattern is the funniest in the game. I love spamming it just to watch enemies get folded in half, bonked up into the air and smacked like a baseball. It's a fantastic moveset. If you've not used it, use it because it's always good for a giggle. But where this weapon doesn't quite shine as bright is its actual damage output. It's very low, so if you end up in situations where you're by yourself or perhaps you're trying to res a teammate and get the horde off of them, it can be really hard, very time consuming, so the damage output is not quite there. I believe that there are better options in game. Like I'm very strongly for just killing the enemy rather than CCing it. However, I will go for a B on the Power Maul. I believe it's a well-deserved middle-of-the-road weapon. It's incredibly fun to use, and I highly recommend it for anyone who's not used it already because it has such a funny moveset. As for blessings, there's not a lot of choices here. However, Confident Strike is very good, and I think Skull Crusher can find some pretty good use here as well. As for perks though, I recommend Unarmored and Flak. This should help you take care of those hordes a little bit faster. And there she is, guys. That is the last tier list in the series. I hope you enjoyed them. If you did, give the video a like, subscribe to the channel. I promise, going to start streaming real soon. I have the microphone, the stand and everything, and a webcam on its way. It's taken a little while because it's the Lunar New Year here in Asia and everything's slowed down at the moment. But as soon as that's all here and I can get that set up, then I'm going to start streaming. It's going to be a combination of Darktide along with a couple of other games, as many of you are probably experiencing as a very much a lull in Darktide content at the moment. It's been a miracle that I've even been able to continuously make videos as I've had. But If you're interested in checking that out, of course, as always, the link will be down in the description below. Don't forget to leave your thoughts on this list. What would you have changed and why? I love hearing the feedback because some of you guys have some really interesting ideas on how to use certain weapons and what combinations to use them in. But until next time, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you on the flippity flip. Peace.